Toga, toga, toga. I'll get to that in just a minute. It is fun to see a show. I'll tell you a quick story. We were on family vacation 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. Time flies. And we were at this really cool resort in the mountains in New York, I guess on the edge of the Catskills. They had entertainment every night. And the entertainment was kind of hokey. The first night that we were there, two guys did a tribute, an hour-long tribute to the Everly Brothers. And the Everly Brothers were ahead of my time, certainly ahead of our kids' time. But we sat and we watched, got a kick out of it. The second night, we couldn't wait to see, well, who's the entertainment tonight? No acts that you had ever heard of. And all 4 nights that we were at this resort, we went to see the entertainment. Had never heard of anybody, but had a blast. You have heard of the Spinners, you've heard of Buddy Guy, you've heard of the Pointer Sisters, you've heard of Wayne Newton and a lot of others all coming to Parks Casino. If you're looking to do something, go see a show at the Excite Center at the Parks Casino. Close to me, close to those who are in the Northeast, a lot of fun stuff going on, a lot of good food. Whether you play or you don't play, if you do play, 3,200 state-of-the-art slots, 115 table games, the best sports book on the East Coast. Are you ready for some football? And of course, you can also go and see a show. And as I say, I like to just people watch. No better place to people watch than a casino, right? Parks Casino. For all things Parks Casino, go to parkscasino.com. Parks Casino and Sportsbook. This is how you win. You got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. An exercise that I put to some of you in the chat before we began. August of 1978, 45 years ago right now. Wow, 45 years ago. If you were with us, what was your station in life? August of 1978. I had to do some ciphering here to figure it out for myself. 45 years ago, I was 16 years old and entering my junior year. August of my junior year, I was still playing football, so I would have been right on the brink and dreading summer camp. But August of 78, I was 16, driving. I don't know if I was yet driving a 65 Mustang, but that would then be my, it's so funny because it seemed like such an old car then. But my God, in 78, a 65 Mustang was not that old. And of course, I was about to get totally swept up into Animal House. Animal House came out in August of 1978. It's been 45 years. Oh, Jimmy Carter president. That's another thing. We were 2 years away from the election of Ronald Reagan, politically speaking. For reasons I will share in a moment, I went back and I pulled some of the reviews for Animal House when it came out. So, for example, Janet Maslin in the New York Times says, it's Rush Week 1962 at Faber College, where knowledge is good. Do you remember that? That was the slogan of Faber College. The classiest fraternity on campus, the one to which the editor of the Daily Bavarian belongs, is wowing potential pledges with an elaborate show of gentility and a pianist who can play Tammy. But right next door at the eyesore that is the Delta House, something a little less civilized is going on. The Deltas are the kind of guys who bash beer cans against their foreheads, wheel their dates home in shopping carts, and think they know the words to Louie Louie, which they will sing in off-key unison at less than the slightest provocation. Needless to say, they will not be having a good year. The brother who racks up a 1.2 grade point average will be the brightest of the bunch. The house Romeo will be reduced to gearing his visits to a nearby girls' school to the obituary notices. By the way, do you remember Fran Lebowitz, right? Wasn't that it? I think. Pretending to be the grieving fiance of a dead co-ed is evidently a successful, if pitiable, gambit. So what did she think of it? You know, the New York Times reviews of movies, I always wish they would just give me a grade because I read them and I say, yeah, okay, but is it good? Should I go see it? Janet Maslin, it is by no means one long howl, but it's often very funny with gags that are effective in a dependable, all-purpose way. So that's the New York Times. The Washington Post was written by Gary Arnold, and much of his focus is on John Belushi, the lead of the Washington Post original review of Animal House. John Belushi gets what could be a phenomenal movie career off to a soaring, low comedy start in National Lampoon's Animal House, opening today at area theaters. Further ahead, Belushi also controls a wicked array of conspiratorial expressions with the audience. His smoldering pouts, crazed gleams, elevating eyebrows, and erotically contended smiles generate gleeful, rabble-rousing excitement, and he can seem irresistibly funny in repose or invest minor slapstick opportunities with a streak of genius. I think that means he's doing a really good job. But the line that jumped out at me, though I'm looking up at my lights because I'm obviously in my CNN studio and one of my lights is flickering. That's not a good thing because they are brand new lights. We'll deal with that later. The thing that jumped out at me was this. Further along in the Washington Post original review, Animal House emerges as an enjoyable sophomoric farce, too episodic and shallowly derisive to inspire lasting esteem, but certainly a diverting, cheerful weekend blowout. Wait a minute. Was it too shallowly derisive to inspire lasting esteem? I don't think so, because I'm one of the people, and I said this in the chat, who remembers so many, was it over when the Germans bombed us on Pearl Harbor? Hell no. Or a Blutarsky, a 0.0. Or do you mind if we dance with your dates? Must I go on? I remember all these lines. I think it had lasting influence, and I'm not alone, which brings me to the current movie editor of the Washington Post. His name is Ty Burr. He will be on CNN with me today. He was on the Dartmouth campus when the movie was released. And of course, it is a particular Dartmouth house, fraternity house, that inspired Animal House. So Ty Burr recounts in the Washington Post how he went to a screening in a slightly off campus. I'm thinking of Hanover and the layer over Hanover, New Hampshire, gorgeous town, by the way. So in an off campus small theater, he went to a screening of the movie. And he describes the visceral reaction that students had. He also says that was it the writer of the film? Here it is. I was there at Ground Zero, a preview screening of Animal House at Dartmouth College in Hanover in July of '78. There before my eyes, an audience of listless summer session Ivy League students was jolted into trading their bromides of their older siblings' counterculture for what seemed like a new freedom. To say what you wanted, offend whomever you wanted, grab the rewards you felt were yours. One of the screenwriters of Animal House accompanied the film to Hanover. National Lampoon writer Chris Miller, a Dartmouth alumnus who had based Delta House on his own fraternity, Alpha Delta, which had a notorious reputation then and still does. And apparently they carried, Chris Miller back to the fraternity on their shoulders. And immediately thereafter, at colleges all across the United States, to which I could attest a few years later, toga parties were the norm. Okay, all great fun so far. And, thank you, Michael, for those of us who remember, in regaling us with recollections of Animal House. But wait, there's more, as Ron Popeil would say. In this new analysis, Ty Burr says, hey, this was actually a cultural and political touch point. This ushered in, this 1978 release of Animal House actually is what ushered the end of the 60s out and the beginning of the 80s in. And he goes on to present a political analysis of what this all meant for the future. Bear with me for a moment. I have to look at my script for what I'm going to lift from his piece for TV. I'm really looking forward to my Animal House discussion, as you can imagine. Jesus, Michael, you were on such a roll. What the hell just happened? Right. Sugar. Okay, I think I've got what I'm looking like. That night, you could feel the collective mood swing like a compass needle toward a new north. The audience howled at bits that seemed iconic on first encounter. The horse in the dean's office, Belushi's impression of a zit. They sang along to Shout, as performed in the movie by Otis Day and the Knights. Oh my God, don't get me started. There's a famous scene where Belushi's character, fraternity wildman John Bluto Blutarski, upon hearing a twerpy folk singer serenade a group of young women, calmly takes the guy's acoustic guitar, you remember this, on the staircase, and smashes it to pieces. The students at the screening roared in approval, and more interestingly, relief. By 1978, the progressive liberalism that had sustained the counterculture from before the civil rights era to the fall of Richard Nixon had started to feel like oppressive doctrine. Still, if you were young and in college, you had to subscribe to it. Didn't you? Animal House said, no, man, you didn't. You didn't have to mean it at all. The movie fed into the articulated and growing frustration with an overbearing political correctness, the fear that you couldn't say what you wanted without stepping on somebody's toes, which of course made a lot of people step on someone's toes. He goes on to then wonder if we are now in a similar moment in time, maybe because those who were headed to college were younger then, got swept up into Animal House, are now older, and see similarities in our current climate. Or, to the way Ty Burr described it, 45 years later, the wheel has turned once more, as it always does and will do again. The students who embraced the film's shredding of taboos are now aging parents and grandparents, castigated by their progeny for making sexist jokes or using the wrong pronouns. Oh my God, I love this analysis. Animal House has scenes that still get a laugh and others that have curdled badly with time. Yeah, Pinto and the date and the devil, right? And Jesus. He said, am I part of that generation that has the movie committed to memory through cultural exposure alone? You bet. I can't drive past the Massachusetts Turnpike exit for the town of Otis without mentally adding, my man. However you look at it, Animal House served as the flame around which the generation that had come to power in the go-go 80s learned to dance. So true. The weekend before the Hanover screening, the frat parties at Dartmouth had all featured the usual kegs and general sense of drift. A weekend later, everyone, and I mean everyone, was wearing a toga, the new uniform for a stance of ironic, entitled, and profoundly relieved decadence. Does that sum up our moment in time now? Have the teens and young 20s now become the parents and the grandparents, now reflecting on, as he describes, the difficulty in adjusting, keeping up with the changing mores and political correctness or wokeness? And might there be an Animal House factor in the 2024 election? I ask you, Greg. All right, that's all I got. That is all I got. What do you think? 7 years of college down the drain. Niedermeyer. Remember Niedermeyer? Drop and give me 20. What a great movie. All right, that's really all I wanted to discuss. Come on. I've just danced for my dinner. How about a couple of likes on the Animal House analogy? I gave you old movie reviews, a new interpretation, a modern look at an old. There we go. Okay, thank you for that. It could be a little better. It could be a little bit better. Gang, thank you so much. Yes, this and more. I have got to get into this on radio. You know why? Because television today, when I have Ty Burr from the Post, won't lend itself to the reaction that I want to hear from all of you. So I promise in the coming week, maybe as soon as Monday, we'll actually discuss the Animal House analysis of today's political climate. Have a wonderful day. Watch me on CNN. I'll see you back on radio. You're already subscribed to the newsletter, right? Yeah. We've got a big announcement that I'm about to make about the newsletter. It's the addition of another award-winning editorial cartoonist. I'm just loving being able to showcase their work. I don't get why the newspapers don't value the perspective they bring. Subject for another day. See ya. Hello.
Hey, you're still live, it looks like.
Oh, thanks, pal.
You got it.